Hi, I'm Steve Saylor, and this video was meant to be an accessibility review of the Elgato Stream Deck pedal. Thanks so much to Elgato for sending this over to me to try out. And I wanted to kind of take a look at it from an accessibility standpoint, how this could benefit disabled streamers. And I was trying to figure out how to be able to best kind of talk about it because personally, I don't need this for accessibility purposes. It does help in a little bit where I don't have to see the keyboard or the Stream Deck and know which button is which to be able to do what I want to do, which was push to mute or deafen in Discord. But this way allows me to be able to do that using my feet, and I could personally, I don't have to look at the pedals in order to be able to know which button I'm pressing, which is great. But that's not the full story of how accessible, the potential of how accessible this device can be. And so I wanted to be able to talk to someone who actually this benefits a lot. And I actually was able to find a new friend of mine that I wanted to get to know a little bit. Her name is Kolo, or as she's commonly known online, HelloItsKolo. And I decided to have a conversation with her because I wanted to know a little bit more about her and her experience with the Stream Deck. But the conversation was so good. And I loved it so much that I decided, you know what, I'm just going to put this entire conversation in this video while we also eventually talk about the Stream Deck pedal. So if you want to be able to know more about Kolo and how she's able to play games with her disability, how she's able to stream on Twitch and her journey as a streamer, but then also as well talk a little bit about how she plays games and what she needs to be able to use for using an adaptive controller and switches and buttons to be able to play games, but then also as well her experience with the Stream Deck pedal. So you'll be able to have this up if you want in the background. This is kind of like a podcast interview / conversation. So I apologize if it's a longer video, but I'll have chapter markers down below so you can be able to kind of jump to certain sections if you want to. And I'll also have links to Kolo in the description down below, including how you can be able to get your own Elgato Stream Deck pedal. I do have to clarify that Elgato did not pay me for this video or pay me for a review of this Stream Deck pedal. They just were gracious enough to be able to send this to me to try out. So thank you so much to Elgato for that. All right, well, let's jump into this great conversation with my new friend, Kolo. Hello, Kolo. It's nice to be able to chat with you.
Oh, it's really nice. It's really nice to be able to chat with you.
Yeah. So I should probably mention at least how we met a little bit. I think I kind of like officially sort of met you when you raided my channel one day.
Yeah. I think that was about it. And I'd like followed because I'd seen you on Twitter and I've learned so much about accessibility from your Twitter as well. Aww. And then I saw you online. And usually our stream times, time zones, all of that sort of stuff. Usually our stream times don't match up. And then I saw you and I was like, to my chat, I was like, oh, we're going. Let's go see Steve.
I was like, when you all came in, I was like, oh my gosh, because I'd heard of you, of course, like, because, you know, accessibility community is pretty small. So it's like we kind of all sort of tangentially kind of know each other or know people who know each other. So when you kind of came in, I was like, oh, cool. And then, of course, like the next time you were on, I was like, yes, 100%. I started watching and now I'm a big fan. So there we go.
Oh,
yeah.
Same, absolutely. I learned so much from you, and like it's such an excellent entertainer and educator and host and all of those things. So it's joy to see you doing your thing.
Aw, same for you. All right, so let's discuss the Stream Deck pedal. It's been out for a little bit, but you were able to get access to it a little bit early. But before we kind of go into sort of like what you use the pedal for, it's okay if I can be able to ask kind of like because this definitely gives context to why I have you on. Is what is if you don't mind me asking, what is your disability and how does that affect you when you're gaming or just streaming in general?
Sure. So the doctors can't quite decide which one of these I sit in, but
isn't that always the way?
Always the way. So I have a form of spondyloarthritis. The doctors can't quite decide which one I fit in because I have like part of one and part of the other. But it's somewhere between ankylosing spondylitis and peripheral spondyloarthritis. So effectively, I have problems with my skeleton, particularly in my lower back. But I also have a lot of inflammation And for me, that specifically affects my hands and my elbows. So that means that gripping onto things, holding onto things, especially for a long period of time, is quite tricky. And things like button mashing, the dexterity for that is quite tricky. My hands will shake. Pretty much always they're shaking to various degrees, depending on which day it was. So gripping onto heavy things that people might not think are traditionally heavy, but like a large coffee mug, for example, would be tricky, or like squeezing a ketchup bottle, like that kind of thing is tricky for me. So gripping a mouse long enough to play a game, or gripping a controller for long enough to play a game, is something that gets really painful for me really quickly. And my dexterity isn't really up to it either. So I can use a mouse and I can use a controller, but just definitely not long enough to be able to play a game for more than 10 minutes or so. So I use the Xbox Adaptive Controller to game. The UK Accessibility in Gaming charity Special Effect, they helped me set up. I'm an ambassador for them. They are an amazing lot.
We love Special Effect over here as well. So yes.
They helped set me up and go through loads of iterations of my control scheme. When I had a huge flare up and things were really bad, I entirely played with my feet. And now I play with a mat across my lap, and then the buttons that are on my feet are the equivalent of the shoulder buttons or the bumper buttons on a controller, and then also like the equivalent of a start and select on a PlayStation controller. Those buttons are also on my feet.
Oh, okay. So when you are playing playing games while streaming as well, is there like a different setup that you have? Minus obviously the pedal, we'll get to that in a minute, but like before the pedal, when you had that, was there something that like how was that like affecting sort of how to be able to stream and play games at the same time?
Tricky. It's really tricky. I have to do a really big shout out to my mods here, because when I'm midstream and I am trying to press a lot of buttons and my hands do get quite fatigued and it starts to hurt more the more that I do it, they will do things for me like change the stream title or update a command, or they will find a link to something that we're talking about just to save those few what I would call hand points for me to get that done. So my moderators have been amazing in terms of that. But also different keybinds. The Stream Deck in general, just being able to do like a multi-action stream button, which opens all the windows that I need. So it's so much easier than me pressing and clicking so many different tabs and getting everything in exactly the right place. And there's definitely little bits that I've probably just completely forgotten about because they're so normal to me. They're so routine to me now. But yeah, and maybe it's also worth mentioning that my gaming setup does change. So depending on the game and how accessible the game is, whether the game has native key binding, rebinding options, or whether I have to then do that through Steam, through the controller, through Steam, or whether I have to physically change the buttons, because not every switch that I use for the adaptive controller works in the same way. So some are in the same way that not every button on a controller works in the same way, right? Some are like slow presses if you're looking to look down a scope, for example, in a game. Not all of the buttons have the same functionality. So that does mean that if I play a game that, for example, needs me to press LB and L2 at the same time, that's tricky for me because those are both on my left foot and I can only press one at a time.
Okay.
I might then need to rebind one of those functions to another button that I do use my right hand for, so I can press them both at the same time. So
gotcha.
It does require quite a lot of remapping and figuring out, which is a tricky thing to do because games don't upfront be like, hey, so here's our control scheme, and also you will need to press these buttons simultaneously at some point in the game. So it does definitely change, and I go through slight adaptations for each game that I play.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I can imagine, especially with, there's games that like doesn't offer any controller remapping or even just remapping in general, and they kind of limit to just what like the specific control schemes. So I can imagine that it are there from just a gaming and accessibility perspective, are you finding that it, as games have been kind of being released, is it like, are you finding more games more accessible to you, or are they getting worse? Or are they about the same? same, or is it just like, just another game that just like I have to kind of like do all this extra setup for? Like, how has that been experience for you?
It's kind of all of the above is probably the best way to describe it. So I was only diagnosed about a year and a half ago, and my symptoms only really became to the point where I wasn't able to do daily things about 2 years ago. So this has been a bit of a new adventure for me, trying to figure out something that works with something that I used to be able to do. And then going through the process of finding the right treatment, finding the right medication, and then getting some use back. And I'm very grateful that I am more able than I have been in quite a long time. Thank you, medicine. So my control scheme has definitely changed over time as I've been able to do more with my hands. I used to play entirely with my feet. So the type of games that I have been able to play has changed. So I used to only really be able to use one joystick with my left hand. My right hand wasn't capable enough of doing it. But I have also had both joysticks on both feet and used my toes for them. So it does depend. But then every time that you change that, it's also reprogramming your brain and the muscle memory in a way that I'd never used my feet to such a degree of dexterity before. And my body was like, what are you doing? So then like my ankles started hurting and my knees started hurting. And I was like, oh God, what do I do now? But yeah, and in terms of how that's been, I'm not sure if I can really say it's getting better or it's getting worse, just because my requirements have changed and my needs have changed over the time that I've been using the adaptive controller. I have seen more games be, how do I phrase this? I've seen more games. I think the best way to put it is making more of an effort and being very receptive to feedback that I had been before. And I don't think it's necessarily that brands and the games go out of their way to be inaccessible. I think a lot of the time they just don't know. And as an influencer, when I speak to a company and they approach me about playing their game, the first question I have to ask them is, does it have controller support? Because if it doesn't, I can't play it. Mm-hmm. And then if it does have controller support, can you tell me what the buttons are like? Can you tell me how this works? And that's been very interesting from that point of view, and kind of trying to do a little bit of education on that front and explain what this adaptive controller is, what it means, and how it works. So sort of all of the above is the answer to the question in a very roundabout way.
No, that's totally fine. I mean, I'm super glad that there are games that allow you to be able to play it. I mean, just because of definitely with it's something that even I'm always kind of like trying to be able to educate myself on just what are things that are pain points, but then also like what are just kind of like frustrations that people may have when they're trying to be able to play just a game that a lot of folks may either not sort of think about or sometimes be able to take for granted for. So hearing about that is awesome. And initially, by the way, so I'm probably going to put up this whole conversation as a separate video, but because I will get to the Stream Deck pedal in just a minute. Yeah. But now I'm just I'm just cool with having a conversation, because now I'm curious as well, because you just did something that technically I have yet to be able to do myself. And it's not because necessarily an accessibility barrier. It's just because I remember playing these initially, and they were difficult at first when I was trying to play them. But and then technically, even to this day, I still have yet to be able to finish the last of this series. You finished the entire Mass Effect trilogy.
I did.
How was that for you, story-wise? Because you played it for the first time, correct?
Yeah, so it was a first playthrough, and I had watched the trailer, but I hadn't watched it in, I want to say, maybe a year. I went in with absolutely no knowledge about what was going on. And I probably should preface this with I was incredibly addicted to World of Warcraft for about 11 years on and off. So
same. When it came out, I was just that was like I knew I had an addiction to games at that point. I was like, nope, gotta get out.
Brilliant. Yeah, I was so addicted, but it does mean that I missed out on so many games, which actually is really beautiful now because I'm like, wow, I have all these cool things to look at. So I was only able to do Mass Effect as my physical ability improved, as my physical health improved. I wouldn't have been able to play it probably even 3 or 4 months before I picked it up. And I do have help. So my community manager / video editor / assistant / his name is Musapan, so I call him the all-purpose bovine.
I love it. I love that.
He's great. He's like he's like your best mate, who's also your biggest troll. Like
I have friends like that. Yeah, more than 1,000%. It's frustrating, but also it's like, I love you, you son of a bee with an itch.
Right? Yeah, he's so amazing. And one of the big things that he does for me is he accessibility tests games for me. So because one of the big things on my channel is that I play games for the first time and I have no idea what I'm doing and I get everything wrong. Like I built a brand on playing games badly, like I get distracted.
Oh, same. Right. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like I never thought I was going to be good at games. I just thought it was like I'll just laugh at myself how bad I am at them.
Exactly. I'm totally with you on that one. I'm also aware that because, as we said, because games companies, developers don't put out, hey, you need to press these buttons at the same time, or you need to be able to button mash this, there's this particular quick time event or that kind of thing. I wasn't able to go into that game without any previous knowledge if I had to accessibility test it myself, right? And because you have to check it, I would have had to play like at least an hour, and then maybe even going into the second or the third game, the accessibility options might change, and then it loses the thing that I know my community love, which is watching me fall on my face trying to figure out what to do. So that's one thing that Musi does for me, is sort that out. And he's really familiar with my layout and my ability and which buttons need to go where. So I feel incredibly blessed to have him, because he makes it possible, and he will test loads of games for me. So the games that I end up playing on stream are actually a really small portion of the games that we accessibility test. And he worked out Mass Effect, and he said, right, this is what I think you would need. This is how we can make it work. Something that I wasn't able to do is to select the powers to use. So I couldn't do that. So I was like putting points into them, like, I'm never going to use this. And it did mean that all of my progress in terms of the fights and the power and the combat was all which weapon I was using. And for me, and because that's the shoulder buttons on the controller, for me, that's my feet. So it became this, like, I'm sniping with my feet, which I did.
Which is cool to be able to say, but also it's like, right? How is that? Like, I can imagine like people watching this and be like, how is that even possible? How do you like same as like people ask me, like, how do you play video games when you're blind? I'm like, how are you able to like snipe with your feet? So take me through the process of how does that work? From your setup, because I'm curious as to how you had the control scheme for Mass Effect, because I know that like they kind of have the same settings relatively across the board. There's only a few variations from game to game, but they generally have the relatively same options available to you. So how are you able to? So explain to me, Kolo, how are you able to snipe with your feet?
I might actually just get you one of the buttons. That might just work. I can't pick up my control scheme because it's
kind of like locked down. Sure.
Yeah. Just find one.
I love how your cat is like right there chilling, by the way.
Oh yeah. This is Pumpkin. She hates everybody except Fortnite.
Love that. Oh, I love seeing all his streams. This is great. Okay, cool. So yeah, what do you have there?
So this is one of the buttons. So this is a switch that plugs into a plugs into an adaptive controller, and all the switches look different. Most of mine are solid buttons, but this, as you can see, this is LT. So it has a gradual as you push it. So I have 2 of these on each foot. One is LB, one is RB, one is LT, one is RT. No way, that's wrong.
No, I get it. Yeah. LB, like basically L1, L1, L2, and then R1, R2.
Yeah. So I, in the same way that an able-bodied person who can use a traditional controller would push down this button to use the scope, that's then what I do. And I have a slight incline as well on my feet, so my foot can, like, in a way that my hand can't, and my foot can rest with my heel, a bit like driving a car, right? And then you can push the pedal down. So these help. So effectively it's one of these on each foot to push down the scope and then shoot. And it definitely takes a lot of almost rewiring your brain and rewiring your instincts. Because as somebody who's gamed for a really long time and who mostly used mouse and keyboard, it was a bit of a transition anyway for me to play games with a controller before I had to adapt even further. So from then to go from a controller to an adaptive controller, like, to me, this should be left click and right click. Like, that's the way that my brain works.
Sure.
So yeah, it was, and ergonomically, it's also about getting the angle right, and where my heel sits versus what I can press was really, really important. And just getting used to it. I mean, like, if you watch the first time I did it, I got really into sniping in this game, really into sniping.
Yep.
And if you watch the first time that I tried to do that, terrible. Awful.
I get it. I'm the same way too. Here's the thing. What I love about this so much is that you got really into sniping. Also, I got really into sniping when I'm playing like these kind of games, because it's the one time I'm like, I can able to focus and I can zoom to be able to see where things are, and I can try to be able to aim. Now, if I have the amount of time and that I could be able to do it properly, I can get headshots every time. If you ask me to be able to do it like in a Call of Duty Warzone sort of setting, having to quickly snipe, no, it's not completely off the table, but I love sniping for whatever reason.
And honestly, like, for me, I mean, I'd have to investigate it more to say for sure, but I genuinely feel like that's more of an accessible feature for me, because if I can get a really powerful gun that has to be very precise, but will take down an enemy in 1 or 2 shots, like, that's easier for me to get and to line up and to go bang, bang, sorted, than it is for me to chase enemies with like little imprecise gunshots, because not only is that then far more presses and far more like thumbstick use, right? It's all of those things, but it actually became something that I originally thought this is going to be the biggest challenge. Like, this is going to be the hardest thing. And almost like, I really want to prove I can do this. Like, there's definitely an element of that there as well.
Sure.
Proving to who? Me? Anybody else? Definitely. I think to myself, really.
I think so. I think that's kind of always been the case. Like, especially it's like, like proving to people, it's like, disabled people can do things too, but also like, I can do this. I can be the best sniper in the galaxy. Like, that's what I can do.
That's what my community called me. They were like, "You're the best foot sniper in the galaxy," and that's
I love that so much.
You know, like in Game of Thrones, when Daenerys has like 1 million titles, I'd like to be like Kolo, first of her name, best foot sniper in the galaxy.
Best foot sniper in the galaxy.
Mother of pumpkin.
Yes, mother of I love that so much. So even as a technical thing, so when you were like, I can't even remember if Mass Effect even had this. What was their ability to be able to, they call it ADS or aim down scope? Were you able to set that as a toggle, or did you have to hold the pedal down every time in order to be able to go into basically scope mode?
So I tried with both. I'd have to have a look to see exactly how I did this to confirm it, because I can't quite remember. But I think I changed it in Steam. I think I changed it to to toggle instead of hold. And I think I had to do with that with Steam. I can't quite remember, Steve, to be honest with you.
That's okay. Like, I was just curious, like, if you were able to, like, not the sort of like, okay, which, like, if Steam could do it or Mass Effect could do it. It's more of like, I honestly can't even remember the setting. I'll probably even in editing, I'll even look it up and see what actually is there. But so you're able to use it via toggle, basically.
I tried it, but I found that then really tricky, because if I ever had to use it for other things like flipping between pages or anything else in the game that needed that specific button, it would then hold it down, right? So instead of turning one page, like I'm thinking specifically turning between the pages of the map in Mass Effect 3, where you use those buttons to go from one floor or one page to the other, and then when it was on toggle, it would just flick through. So I had to kind of reconsider how that worked, and actually it turned out that eventually I did just stick to the manual hold it down. Yeah,
gotcha. Okay, so let's jump into the streaming aspect. So when you started streaming, how long ago was it, and kind of like what sort of prompted you to want to be able to like stream on Twitch?
Ooh, so I discovered Twitch in early 2018. I discovered it when I was playing Overwatch with, and this is so important to say because I'm very accessible, right? So this is pre-diagnosis and before I started experiencing the difficulties I do now. And I was playing Overwatch, playing ranked, and I met two people in a match. We got on really well, then ended up playing in a group of their friends and queuing together. And we just had a laugh over voice chat. It was just fun and funny. And one of them did a thing that you shouldn't do. Please don't do this. Like, nobody do this. This is a bad idea. But this is
a cautionary tale, everyone.
Please don't do this, everyone. But also, this is genuinely how I discovered Twitch. And that is that one of the people that I was playing with put their Twitch link in our team chat in Overwatch.
Oh, it was the thing you're told not to do is to spam your Twitch channel, and that helped out in your case.
So don't spam your Twitch channel in Overwatch chat, everybody. Don't do it.
Yeah. It's like to pay no attention to the bit behind the curtain. I love it.
And I was like, what's this? And it had his same name, Ben, with lots of N's, and it had his same channel name as his username. And I was like, what's this? And I'd just got a second monitor for the first time. Oh, it's so beautiful, so shiny.
Love it.
And so I went over to my second monitor and typed it in, and I was like, I wonder what this is. And it came up and he was streaming it. And I was like, that's my voice. Like, what's that? So not only did he put his Twitch channel in Overwatch chat, but he also had there was no like, can I record your voice? Can I?
I was about to say, like, all of a sudden you find like, oh wait, did I say anything bad? Like, oh shoot, the panic that kind of goes through at that point.
So that was an interesting experience. And he and I have talked about it since, and he's like, yeah, about that. Sorry, I shouldn't have done, So anyway, that's how I discovered Twitch. That was, I want to say, probably February 2018. And so we became really good friends, and they really encouraged me to stream. And I was like, I don't really think I've got anything to say. Nobody wants to watch me play games badly. Like, I'm quite confident that would be really like, what would I say? What would I talk to people about? Cut to 4 years later, and I literally spend 2 hours a stream and just chatting with my community.
I mean, that's always the way. Like, it always kind of like starts off like, no one's gonna pay attention to me. My thing was that I just thought I'd sucked at games, so I thought, oh, you know what? I'll just like get one of my friends to kind of help me be able to play a game. And I thought, hey, it could be fun, sort of making content together. And we basically that's how I started streaming. It's actually around that time, around 2018, I was playing Destiny for the first time, and I was streaming it literally off of my PS4. I didn't even have a PC or anything like that at all. So I was in a similar pathway. It's like, no one's gonna care about watching me stream. And then cut to several years later, and I'm just like, oh, okay, this is a thing now.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's a very special place. And I think that also sort of spans my journey of like thinking that I didn't really have getting a little bit personal, but feeling like I didn't think that I had much to offer. And then actually learning through Twitch streaming that like the feedback from the community and the way that I actually feel more confident in so many ways, because the things that I was really worried about, i.e. being absolutely terrible at games and being one of the most awkward people in the history of the world, are actually things that people are celebrating and like laughing with me. And I think that's been a really special journey to go on for me as well, like both on stream and off stream, like kind of away from the stepping out of the office and taking that with me there as well has been really special.
I love that. It's like you thought that people would be laughing at you, but then they're laughing with you, and then that's the nice thing about it, and that's something I take to heart as well. So like obviously with streaming, there comes like a lot of different streaming setups and different equipment and stuff like that. So you have several, I believe, Elgato products to kind of help you with your stream. You mentioned the Stream Deck before. What other products do you use that kind of like helps you with your setup and streaming when you're going into whether just a chatting stream or even playing video games?
So the Stream Deck does so much. Like I've customized it so much. The more that I have to grip a mouse, the worse it gets, basically. I can do it, and I can do it in spurts. And I feel like that's also something really important to say, because I have had people come into the stream before and they've been like, oh, well, your hands don't work and yet you're lifting up a mug. And I'm like, that's not, I'm having this conversation about disability and about good days and bad days and about how we should be celebrating the good days and not attacking somebody and going, you said blah, blah, blah. Like, be like, oh my God, yeah, you can use that today. You can do that thing today, and have that different angle. But anyway, I digress. I'm sorry, Steve. I go on so many.
No. I'm in the same boat too. Like a lot of people don't really talk about like streaming when it comes to when you have a disability. Like there are times where I can be the best like sniper in Destiny with a combat bow, and I am just like I'm literally like killing it as it were. But then there are days where it's just like my eyes are just so fatigued that I can just barely even stare at a screen, let alone being able to like turn on the cameras and the lights and all that to even turn on Twitch. So there are days that are good and there are days that are bad, and it's not that we like our disabilities getting worse or better, is just that's just the day-to-day life of having a disability, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also something where I don't know what the best way to say this is it's not a one size fits all. It's not like color by numbers, it's not on off.
It's more like a basically a spectrum. It's like it's just like it kind of fills in whatever sort of side of that spectrum that you're on. It just could be on one end on one day, or the other opposite end on the other day, or just somewhere in between.
Absolutely. And you'll find me most frequently talking about my hands, because that is the thing that is most apparent in the streaming world. But my back is a really significant issue. And so sometimes I will have to cancel stream because I can't sit here. Like I cannot sit down. And while I have a sit-stand desk, I can't stand up and play games because my foot controls require me to be sitting down so I can get the angle right of my foot. It's a little bit, again, like trying to drive a car when you're standing up. Like, yeah, is it possible? I mean, maybe don't try it because it's probably not safe.
I would, that's driving standing up might probably be a little bit of problematic, I think.
So it's sort of tricky to have that conversation.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, to loop back to your first question, a lot of automated things. Again, I have an incredible mod team who will help me change things midstream if they need to be changed. I have Musi who does all the game testing for me. And I feel really blessed to have him on my team and to work with him every day like that. I feel like it's very special that that somehow the universe conspired for us to meet, which is really lovely. But yeah, lots of stuff on the Stream Deck. I'm staring at it now. So I have different things like all my links. I have sound effects. I have all of my different scenes. I have a panic button. So if we have a problem in chat, I can immediately put it into remote only mode and clear the chat and that sort of stuff. I also have a button that automates like hiding my chat, hiding my alerts. I also have a button that is the emote of my cat that comes up here. So when she does what we call a dirty ballerina, which is effectively when a cat licks their butt, right? So I have like a little privacy screen for her to lift that up. And then I have the stuff like I have a startup button that pulls up OBS. It opens all of the different things that I need. And you can get loads of window snapping tools as well that will put your windows in exactly the right places. And there's a lot of automation thing that I think I previously thought were like convenience things or like quality of life or slightly speed it up. And now it's like, actually, I could live without one of these. I could do this without one of these or two of these or three of these, but actually, how difficult would it be for me to consistently do this without 4 of these or 5 of these? So it's those tiny little things that add up to making something accessible.
For sure. So when you were able to receive the Stream Deck pedal, and now we're finally talking about it. So you were able to receive the Stream Deck pedal a little bit early to be able to test out. So when you opened that up and you were able to set that up for the first time, how did that sort of how did that feel being able to utilize that and did it and then B, did it make things a little bit easier for you when trying to be able to either stream or setting it up to use your computer or be able to play games?
Yes, to all of the above. I was actually really emotional when I was sent one. And when I was approached about it, I was like, wow. Like, this is so cool. Like I was really, and I felt like it was, God, I can't even really begin. It's so strange because being emotional about accessibility is something that I feel is quite hard to understand unless you've been there yourself or unless you've experienced that yourself. But in a world that's so inaccessible, to have something where a company is like here is a thing that makes your job more accessible, makes your life so much easier. And it's like, I can be involved in this. Like I can take part. And I've seen some of your videos over that. And I know 100% that you will understand exactly what I'm saying. A few times, like a little bit too intimately on that one for sure. So yeah, so what were some of the things that you were able to set up that you use the Stream Deck pedal for? So I use it for a bunch of stuff. I have profiles set up in the Stream Deck app. So when I am off stream, I use it as my push to talk or mute mic or mute Discord. I use it as Discord controls, which makes it much easier for me. And that means that if I'm in a meeting in Discord or if I'm like hanging out with my friends, just like watching a movie or something, like I don't have to touch anything. Like I can sit, wow, and in terms of stream, I use it for a whole bunch of things depending on what I'm doing. So I can use it for scene changes. I was on the front page recently and I was really anxious about what that might bring. So I actually put my panic button, I put on one of the Stream Deck pedals, just so I knew it was right there and I didn't have to worry about hitting the right button or anything, because my feet are much more accurate than my hands for that kind of thing, It depends what I'm doing. I haven't experimented with it in terms of how it would work as a controller. I have tried to plug it into the Xbox Adaptive Controller. Haven't been able to get it to work with that. I think it might be something to do with the USB compatibility, but I'm not sure.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's kind of. Yeah, I think it's just not super compatible, and unfortunately, but hopefully something like a patch could be made for something like that. But
hopefully so.
Yeah.
And I come from the first game that I played a lot on stream. Not the very first game, but the first game that I really got into is Elite Dangerous. And there are Elite Dangerous players who made a plugin for the Stream Deck that could be used in game as lots of key bindings. And Elite Dangerous is like a real keybind heavy. It's sort of a running joke that if you have to reset your keybinds, you're there for a couple of hours to like just put them all in and customize them, right? So I'm really hopeful as well, sort of knowing that that kind of thing could happen, that actually it might be possible to use the Stream Deck for that too.
Oh, that's awesome. So with being like you've had it for a little while now, are there things that you kind of wish that the Stream Deck pedal would have, or like any functionality that you feel like it's like, oh, it'd be better if it was able to do this, or anything like any improvements that you would want to be able to see either in an updated version of the Stream Deck pedal or Stream Deck Pedal 2 or anything like that?
So something that I would love to see is multi-press. So for this specifically, I'm thinking like if I could tap twice on the left button, it would do a different action to if I tapped once, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so kind of basically single click or double click kind of thing.
Yeah. Or maybe kind of if I pressed 2 at the same time, it might do a specific thing. And I kind of thought maybe this could work with the same functionality as on the Stream Deck when you have a folder and you press the folder button and then it opens up into more actions. You know, maybe there's some, and obviously that's very hard to get working visually. And how would you figure that out? Like, I don't know. I'm not a developer.
Right.
But I think multi-press actions would be really cool to see. And the idea that could then bring it from 3 different actions or 3 different 3 different things to way more than that, I think would be amazing. I think the biggest, I want to say surprise for me, and I don't know why this was a surprise for me, but I was very pleased to see it, is that actually it doesn't move. Like you put it on the floor and it doesn't move. And I have like a Velcro mat on the floor, and I've had to put rubber. There's sun under here, under my cat's bed as well. I don't know if it's like like just about as pink. Like, and it's the sort of
it's gonna have like a little bit of a grip to it so that it doesn't slide. Yeah,
exactly. So I've glue gunned that onto the bottom of my Velcro board. And then
I love that.
And then it's also weighted down, and I have Velcro strips on my floor that then get stuck to Velcro strips on the underside of the board, so it does not move, and yet somehow it still moves. Because I mean, realistically, if I'm like stamping on this board several times, like several times a minute, trying to like shoot an enemy, like like screaming as I try and do it, it will eventually move. But one thing that I really like about the pedal, the Stream Deck pedal, is that it's substantial enough that it sits in the same place.
Yeah, that's one thing I love about it too, is that it like I have it on carpet, but it like so it doesn't really move around too much. But like even if I push a little bit extra, it's definitely it takes a lot of effort to be able to move it. So do you also have adjusted like any of the springs or anything like that at all, or do you just kind of have it as the default at like a sort of the resistance as is with on the pedal?
So I played around with it and then went back to the default because it worked really well for me.
I know it's good. It's good as is almost. Like I appreciate that they have that available. Like you have a bunch of different springs and stuff. But yeah, no, the default is like almost perfect for my case. So it definitely works that well for you.
Yeah, and it's something that is a functionality that my adaptive controls don't have. So you can get different switches that have kind of different kind of tactile options. So you can have switches that are slightly harder to press, but I don't have any. I'm sure they exist somewhere, and if they don't, I really hope that they do in the future. But that was really interesting for me to have that option because I've not had that option before, and I was like, whoa, this this is so cool, you know? And something that I also have kind of struggled with a little bit is that I'm somebody whose feet gets really cold, but I can't play games with socks on because I need to be able to feel the buttons.
Right.
If I don't know exactly where they are, I'm definitely going to press the wrong one. But the Stream Deck pedal, the bumps between them are so I don't know what the right word is. Obvious.
I think it's like they have different sort of tactile feel for each of them. Yeah.
So it's relatively easy to do that without having cold feet, which, as somebody who always has cold feet, it's a very lovely addition. Wear my baby Yoda slippers.
I love that. So, what are your kind of thoughts overall, like just about the Stream Deck pedal? Like, is this something that you would recommend to those with disabilities who think they might be able to use that for either streaming or just kind of using their computer in general?
Yeah, I think it very much depends on each person, what each person's needs are.
Sure.
For somebody who struggles like me with their hand use, it may well be a really great option for them. And I think the thing is that I don't think it's just for streamers. Like, one of my friends got one and they don't game. They just use Discord, and they use Discord for their work and their work calls. But it's so much easier for them because they're usually typing, and then they use their pedals for like push to talk, mute, deafen in each order, right? So they don't even play games and they love it and they use it. And I think that there's also accessibility options in that sense too, as though it's not just about people who have seen changes in OBS, but I think it's also, there's a wider audience there of people that already are using it in that way, whether it's a situational accessibility need or whether it is a long-term accessibility need or a health related, that's probably the best way to put that, isn't it? Whether it's a situational need for accessibility or whether it's a health related need for accessibility or a mix of both. Yeah, I think there's some great uses for it. And I'm really glad that really happy that I got to test it and I got to try it out. And it was an emotional experience, which I'm sort of laughing at myself for, but like, you're nodding your head like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I understand.
It's like you don't expect to get emotional in that sort of thing. It's like, oh, cool. Like, and then it just like, and then it hits you like how much that opens the door for a lot of different uses and a lot of different things that you would never have been able to do before, or get like be able to play a game or like make things a lot easier for you streaming wise, or like it makes things like, because we as with disabilities, we have to adapt to a lot of different things on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. And when there's something that kind of like helps us so much and a lot of the frustrations we have on a day-to-day basis, if there's something that can be able to eliminate a lot of that, it can get emotional. Like it can be an emotional experience for sure. So I totally understand that.
I think it's also something that we get used to it. Like, we get used to having to find a workaround, like having to find a different way to do it, trying to make something accessible. And then when something comes along and it's just like, it just is. It's like, wow. And you sort of have that realization of, oh, wow, like I have to do all this extra work that other people don't have to do. Like, and I sort of forgot about it until something came along that I could use straight out of the box, you know? So, yeah, there's an interesting thing there. But I also think, I mean, I was talking to you about this before the call recorded, but I also think that it's something that I might experiment with strapping it on. I have a little unit under my desk, and I think that at some point I'm going to experiment with strapping it onto the side of the unit so I can knock the buttons with the side of my right knee, which would then allow me to... Is my cat going to lick her butt?
Look like, I don't know. She's thinking.
Wait for her to sit back down again.
Oh, there we go. Okay, good.
So I am thinking about experimenting with putting my Stream Deck pedal, attaching it to the side of the unit that I have under my desk on my right hand side, so that I can knock the buttons with the side of my right knee, which sounds really bizarre, but actually would mean that I can press them at the same time as playing games without using my hands to activate it, and without taking my feet off the adaptive control. So I could like like I could zoom in on a scope, I could be shooting, and I could use the side of my knee to change scenes at the same time. Like, why would I need to change scenes at the same time? I got no idea. Would I like to be able to do it? Sure.
That's exactly it. It's like, I would not be, I don't know if I'm going to use it, but the fact that I can do it is just good enough for me.
I think there's also this stuff, and I'm thinking as well about the people that special effect work with and being able to communicate. Again, like just the Discord plugin itself is really big for being able to communicate without pressing buttons, for sure, or pressing buttons with your hands. How do you use it, Steve? I don't know how you use it.
I actually use it like basically using a lot of it for Discord because I'm having to be able to like I play games with my friends and they also stream as well. So whenever they kind of go into streamer mode as like when they're talking to their chat, I basically just kind of like just deafen the whole like using my feet, and it just makes it a lot easier because I'm having to hold a controller or having to be able to like I'm having like I go by tactile feel a lot on my keyboard or on my Stream Deck and I have like a Go XLR, so it's kind of hard for me to kind of like find the like to be quick and precise with being able to click a button on the fly. And so I have to rely on like keyboard shortcuts or macros because I can't just do it in OBS or in Discord. So having that foot pedal for me is great because then it gives me like it uses the two extremities that I'm not using and kind of uses it so that way I can just focus in on what I'm actually doing instead of and it just kind of eliminates a lot of that extra precise movement that I would need to do. So yeah, that's kind of what I use it for on my end for sure. Cool. So yeah. Well, Kolo, thank you so much for joining me and chatting with me today. For those who are watching this and want to be able to follow you and what the amazing stuff that you do, where can people follow you online with consent?
Well, if you wanna come talk to me and hang out, that'd be pretty snazzy. I'd love to come meet you. You can find me under the name HelloItsKolo, all one word, and that's my name basically everywhere. So come find me on Twitch. I'm on YouTube too. And if you're interested in seeing what iterations of my control scheme look like, I played one of the first kind of intense control scheme games that I played with my adaptive controller is Subnautica, and I played that entirely with my feet. So if you'd like to see about what that looked like, there's a video of that on my YouTube channel as well. Or come see me on all of. I'm really bad at doing my own shout outs.
No, it's okay. Basically, I'll have links to everything in the description for sure. So make sure to please go follow Kolo and say hello, as it were.
Perfect.
Hi.
You're lovely.
Yeah.